Chapter 18. Arrival on Mars. My thoughts and I were of another world. Every man of his humor. Ben Jonson, Act 3, Scene 3. The amphitheater was brilliantly illuminated with many colored lights. A crowd of yellow, red, and blue complexioned men gathered around us with loud cheers. They were clad in suits of armor similar to those we had worn, and bore strange implements emitting fine electric sparks. Several, who seemed to be the leaders, courteously greeted the prince and Asterion. We descended the platform and were escorted by the superintendent of the station through the gates of the amphitheater to his residence, a commodious building of red stone where we took quarters for the night. Altafora informed me that he should depart early the next morning for home to arrange for our reception. In the meantime he would leave us in the care of the doctor, for a few days until we heard from him, during which we were to observe strict incognito as to our names and nationality. The next morning we donned our veils and, accompanied by the doctor and superintendent, took a walk around the place. It was a small village of dwelling houses and machine shops, containing a few hundred inhabitants, engineers and workmen with their families. It was situated on the shores of the Antarctic continent, about 200 miles from the pole, which is surrounded by the Samudra Ocean, or South Polar Sea, corresponding to the more so-called Mare Australia of our Martian maps, and which communicates with other oceans, separating the continents and lands of the south temperate regions. On the following day, Asterion, who had been engaged in the making of preparations for another planetary journey, informed us he was about to take a trip to the asteroids, that vast belt lying between the orbits of Mars and Jupiter. "My dear Asterion," expostulated the doctor, "in the name of heaven, why do you not take some rest? You need it. You take no proper care of yourself, and as for recreation, you never allow yourself any." "My enjoyments and recreations are in these journeys," he replied, "and you know I am in love with my profession, and never so happy as when roaming amongst the planets." "But the strain on your nervous system is exceedingly severe. You'll wear yourself out, in spite of your wonderful powers of endurance. You'll be shipwrecked some day. Your life is too dear and valuable to us for you to risk it in these dangerous pursuits. Remember the sad fate of your renowned ancestor. Besides, Prince Altafora expects you to participate in the festivities celebrating the arrival of our guests from Earth, and the Prince Solamiria will honor the event with her royal presence." A faint blush overspread Asterion's countenance. "I deeply regret that I shall be compelled to deprive myself of the pleasure. I have many important investigations to make in those regions, and this is the only season for it." "But you are to receive the especial commendation of the Grand Duke, and high honors from the Royal College of Scientists for your wonderful discovery, the greatest of the age. Prince Altafar and all will be exceedingly disappointed at your absence," urged the doctor. "As you well know, doctor, I care nothing for worldly honors and applause. My aspirations find their highest gratification in whatever discoveries I may make in the noble science to which I have devoted my life, and which may be useful to my fellow men. I seek no reward here, and live only in the hope that, when my mortal life is ended, I may be permitted to pursue, in higher spheres, the calling I so dearly love." "We do highly honor your truly noble sentiment, Asterion, but 'tis not right that you should permit yourself to incur such dangers in the pursuit of science." "As to perils, my dear doctor, while I never unwisely incur them, as you know, I never permit them to interfere with my duty." "But the journey is long and tedious." "The belt is only about 50 million miles from here, and less than 300 million miles wide," replied he with perfect nonchalance. "'Tis nothing but a huge revolving chaos," said I, "an interplanetary desert consisting of a few hundred planetoids and thousands of mere fragmentary meteorites. And I am interested in that very subject of planetoidal and meteoroidal consolidation. By the way, Lieutenant, what is the opinion of your astronomers in regards to the origin of this great asteroidal belt?" "They are not in agreement on that point," I replied. "Some entertain the opinion that they are the fragments of a former planet destroyed by a terrible explosion, or a collision with some other celestial body. Others hold that they consist of partially consolidated cosmic matter, which originally formed one of the great nebulous rings thrown off by the Sun in past ages, and which has not yet been rolled up into a solid planet. They are the fragments of a once glorious world, the most resplendent in the planetary hierarchy. Its name is Luiso Avante Durismama, or the Great Shining One, the history of whose awful destruction is recorded in the annals of our royal library. Many of the revolving remnants of this planet are surrounded by atmospheres, which they could not otherwise exist unless portions of the original great planetary atmosphere had not clung to them after the explosion. In future ages, all these fragments will be reunited by mutual attraction and consolidated into a new planet. At these words, the scriptural prophecy came to mind. For behold, I create a new heaven and a new earth, and the former shall not be remembered, nor come into mind. Towards evening, the superintendent announced to Asterion that his ethervolt car was in readiness, and we all entered the gates of our station, which was built over one of the polar magnetic centers. It was 1,000 feet in diameter, surrounded by massive walls of red stone, and its pavement resembling blue crystal. On the platform, elevated a few feet above the floor, was a large ethervolt car supported on a metallic framework. Underneath were immense magnetic batteries, connected with conductors penetrating deep in the earth, and which evolve the great cosmic streams originating at the polar centers, and which propel or attract the cars on their planetary journeys. Nearby were other platforms and cars. A pungent odor resembling ozonized oxygen and a peculiar electric aura pervaded the air, producing a singular tingling sensation over our faces and hands. Crowds of workmen, clad in complete armor, stood around the platform near the batteries. Yonder is my old favorite, which brought us here, said Asterion, pointing to one of the cars. I have named her my Lady Teriso Marissa, Queen of the Merito-Terrestrian Highways. She has made splendid time on her return trip when my little cosmic motor took the reins, and I shall let her rest till my return. My old Astorial ethervolt is pretty badly battered up on her last trip. This is a new car built under my personal supervision by the most celebrated car builders of our kingdom, and has many improvements of my own. As the car rested lightly on its platform, it was a model of beauty, 50 feet high and glittering like burnished silver under the rays of the setting sun. It was fully manned with the necessary equipment for a long planetary voyage. Vidion now came forward with the casket and motor. How rapidly will you travel? Asked the doctor. At my usual speed, from 10 to 20 million miles per day, reserving my motor for straight shoots along the asteroidal belt, as occasioned or necessity requires. How long will you be absent? I asked. For 2 or 3 months, depending on the circumstances. I have special investigations to make on many of the larger planetoids. We ascended the platform, and Boris opened the door of the car. Farewell, my dear friends, said Asterion, warmly pressing our hands. And please accept my sincere wishes for your safe and prosperous journey, said I. And may you enjoy the festivities of honor of your arrival, he replied. And to which your presence is now denied us would give the greatest éclat, said the doctor, almost reproachfully. Doctor, replied he, please convey to the Grand Duke and the members of the Royal College my highest sentiments of loyalty and esteem, and present to the Princess Solumia the respectful salutations of her honored and devoted servant, Asterion. As he spoke these words, his voice trembled, and an expression of deep sadness overspread his countenance. Farewell, Asterion, said the doctor, placing his hands on the young man's head as he bent before him, while a tear stood in his eye. May he who holds the universe in the hollow of his hand, who guides the stars, suns, and planets in their course through the infinite realms of space, watch over and shield you and your companions from all harm through this long and perilous journey, and restore you safe again to your friends, all of us who love and esteem you. We descended the platform at a distance. Asterion, Vidion, and Burrus entered the car and closed the door. The engineers worked the batteries. A profound vibration seemed to arise from the depths of the solid ground, and the crystal floor and the lofty walls of the amphitheatre trembled as if shaken by the commencing undulations of an earthquake. Showers of spark flew from the summit of the green globe. The car rose from its platform, rapidly and gracefully ascending in mid-air, throwing off resplendent prismatic colors in its upward flight, and it was soon lost to view in the distant clouds. It seemed like the flight of an ethereal chariot to the celestial spheres. Asturion is the most high-minded and chivalrous young man in our kingdom, Prince Altaforta alone excepted, said Dr. Hamovell. His courage is heroic, his genius unsurpassed, and his devotion to science and his arduous profession unparalleled. All our scholars and men of science have the greatest regard and affection for him. Prince Altafora loves him like a brother, and Prince Solamia entertains the highest esteem and admiration of his truly great and noble qualities. And the princess? I asked. Solimia Angelicon, the Juve Indra, or princess of the blood royal of the ancient line of Thulvaria kings, and the sister of Prince Altafora, he replied. She is the pride and glory of our kingdom, and universally beloved. Her beauty is matchless, her accomplishments of the highest order, and what is far better, her nobility of soul, amiability and gentleness of disposition, and perfect ingenuousness of character endear her to all. We left the amphitheatre and returned to the house. That night I dreamt of those intrepid voyagers winging their swift flight through the realms where chaos reigns supreme, to other worlds than ours, and amidst these dreams floated a vision of transcendent female loveliness, such as a mortal eye hath never seen among the beauteous ones of earth. And with it too appeared the sad and noble countenance of Asturion, gazing on that angelic vision with a mingled look of adoration, hopeless love, and despair.